Ronald "Rod" Diggs Herron, from rap fame to a supermax cell. Ronald Herron, better known by his street name Rod Diggs, once walked a dangerous line between hip-hop fame and ruthless gang life. A rising rapper from Brooklyn's Gowanus houses, Herron wasn't just another artist rapping about the streets. He lived it. As a powerful Bloods gang leader, Herron ruled over his territory with fear and violence. Today, he's locked away inside the nation's most secure prison, ADX Florence, serving multiple life sentences for murder, racketeering, and drug trafficking. Born in 1982, Herron grew up surrounded by poverty, violence, and gang influence. He quickly became affiliated with the Bloods and eventually rose to lead a faction known as Murderous Mad Dogs, MMD, a brutal subset responsible for terrorizing parts of Brooklyn in the late 1990s and 2000s. His street rep skyrocketed, and so did his ambition. By the early 2000s and 10s, Herron had adopted the persona of Rod Diggs, blending rap with real-life criminal exploits. He posted videos online flaunting guns, issuing threats, and boasting about beating previous charges, including a 2001 murder case in which witnesses mysteriously refused to testify. His music and online presence attracted a cult following, but also the attention of federal investigators. In 2014, Herron was brought down in a sweeping federal indictment. The charges were devastating: 3 murders, multiple drug trafficking counts, gun violations, and leading a criminal enterprise tied to the Bloods. Prosecutors painted a chilling picture of a man who used murder as a tool, killing rivals and even threatening witnesses to silence them. During the trial, witnesses testified that Herron ordered hits, sold crack and heroin, and ran Gowanus like a warlord. The evidence was overwhelming. Rod Diggs' own rap lyrics and videos were used against him, serving as confession and intimidation. He was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences plus 105 years, effectively erasing any hope of freedom. Given his leadership role in a violent gang, his influence in prison, and his demonstrated ability to communicate with gang members from behind bars, the Bureau of Prisons designated him a severe security risk. He was transferred to the ADX Florence Supermax Prison in Colorado, a place designed to contain the most dangerous inmates in the country. At ADX, Herron is under Special Administrative Measures, SAMs, a legal protocol restricting all communication to prevent gang leadership from influencing criminal activity outside prison. He now spends 23 hours a day alone in a soundproof cell. The man who once performed in front of cameras and crowds now speaks to no one. Ronald "Rod" Diggs, Herron's story is a modern cautionary tale. He tried to straddle 2 worlds, rap celebrity and gangland boss, but ultimately couldn't escape the consequences of the latter. His lyrics were real, his crimes were brutal, and his punishment, permanent isolation, fits a man deemed too dangerous for even the general prison population. From the projects of Brooklyn to the silence of ADX Florence, Rod Diggs' rise and fall is a chilling portrait of gang power, media, and justice. Ronald "Big Head" Wilson, a Blood, a killer, and a prison ghost. Ronell "Big Head" Wilson was once a feared and ruthless gang member on the streets of Staten Island, New York. A product of a broken system and a violent environment, Wilson rose through the ranks of a local Bloods-affiliated crew known for robberies, drug trafficking, and ruthless violence. But it was one brutal act that would catapult him into infamy and ultimately land him inside the most secure prison in America, ADX Florence, the Alcatraz of the Rockies. Born in 1982, Wilson's life took a dark path early. By his teenage years, he was heavily involved in the street life, selling crack, carrying firearms, and making a name for himself in New York's underworld. But in 2003, Wilson made a move that shocked even hardened criminals. On March 10, 2003, NYPD detectives Rodney Andrews and James Nemerin both working undercover, arranged a meeting with Wilson and his crew during a gun trafficking sting. The deal was a setup, but the officers never expected what came next. Wilson, seeing an opportunity to make a name for himself and eliminate perceived threats, pulled the trigger, executing both officers at point-blank range, stealing their money and weapons. The city of New York was outraged. The NYPD launched an unprecedented manhunt, and Wilson was soon arrested. In 2006, he became the first person in New York City to receive a federal death sentence since the 1950s. Prosecutors labeled him a cold-blooded killer who showed no remorse. The courtroom was filled with raw emotion as the families of the slain officers demanded justice. But the legal saga didn't end there. Wilson's death sentence was later overturned due to procedural errors. In a retrial, he was resentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Due to his high-profile crime, gang ties, and continued threats while in custody, Wilson was sent to the United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility, ADX Florence, in Colorado. There, he is subjected to Special Administrative Measures, SAMs, ensuring he remains cut off from the outside world. Inside the prison's supermax walls, he spends 23 hours a day in solitary confinement with minimal human interaction, no access to media, and extreme monitoring. To this day, Wilson remains a symbol of gang violence and its tragic consequences, not only for the victims, but also for those seduced by the illusion of power and respect that the gang lifestyle offers. In the Bloods hierarchy, Ronell Big Head Wilson once had street fame. Now, he is just another ghost locked away in a concrete tomb. His name forgotten by many, his future erased. What began as a bid for reputation ended in isolation, a life defined by silence, regret, and cold steel. For Wilson, the path of violence led not to glory, but to the most lonesome cell in America. Pedro Magu Gutierrez, the silent general of the United Blood Nation. Pedro Magu Gutierrez was once one of the most powerful and feared Bloods leaders in the United States. As the second in command of the United Blood Nation, UBN, a prison-born street gang that grew into a violent national organization, Gutierrez helped oversee a vast criminal empire that stretched from the prison yards of New York to the streets of the East Coast. Today, he lives in near-complete silence and isolation inside ADX Florence, the nation's most secure federal prison. The United Blood Nation was originally founded in 1993 inside Rikers Island, intended as a defense against the dominance of the Latin Kings and Yetas. Pedro Gutierrez, known by his gang name Magu, became one of its earliest and most respected leaders. Alongside founder Omar "OG Mac" Porte, Gutierrez helped transform the UBN into a structured criminal organization with codes, ranks, and an expanding footprint both in and outside of prison. By the mid-2000s, Gutierrez had earned the title of Godfather of the UBN, overseeing gang operations from behind bars. His orders carried deadly weight. Whether it was coordinating drug sales, extortion, or violent assaults, including murders of rival gang members and internal enemies, Magu's influence was undeniable. But federal authorities were watching. Over time, law enforcement built a powerful case against the UBN's leadership. In 2017, Gutierrez and other high-ranking Bloods leaders were indicted on RICO charges, including conspiracy to commit murder, drug trafficking, and directing violence from within prison walls. Prosecutors revealed chilling details. From his prison cell, Gutierrez communicated with UBN sets across multiple states using coded letters, contraband cell phones, and corrupt intermediaries. He gave the green light on hits, organized nationwide meetings, and maintained strict control over the gang's internal discipline system. Even incarcerated, Magu was commanding a criminal army. In 2019, Gutierrez was sentenced to life in federal prison without parole. Due to his high-level leadership and proven ability to operate from behind bars, the Bureau of Prisons transferred him to ADX Florence in Colorado. There, Gutierrez is held under Special Administrative Measures, SAMs, a designation reserved for the most dangerous federal inmates. In ADX, Magu spends 23 hours a day in solitary confinement, allowed only 1 hour of heavily monitored recreation in a concrete enclosure. He has no direct contact with other inmates and limited, censored communication with the outside world. For a man who once wielded power over thousands, his voice has been effectively silenced. Yet the legacy of Pedro Magu Gutierrez still lingers. The United Blood Nation continues to operate across the country, though fractured and weakened without its top leadership. Some members still speak his name with reverence, calling him a visionary. Others see him as a tyrant who led them into chaos. From the rise of the UBN in New York to permanent isolation in America's toughest prison, Magu's story is one of ambition, power, and ultimate downfall, a criminal empire built behind bars and brought down by it. Omar O.G. Mac Portee, the founder of the United Blood Nation. Omar O.G. Mac Portee is a name etched into the dark history of American gang culture. As the founder of the United Blood Nation, UBN, Portee created a movement inside the walls of New York City's Rikers Island that would spill onto the streets, fuel a wave of violence, and become one of the most dangerous prison-based gangs in the United States. Today, he sits locked inside the ADX Florence Supermax Prison in Colorado, his voice silenced, his empire fractured, but his legacy still casting a long shadow. Portee was born in 1969 in the Bronx, New York. As a young man, he became involved in street crime and was eventually incarcerated at Rikers Island. During the early 1990s, black inmates were frequently targeted by the more dominant Latin gangs, particularly the Nietas and Latin Kings. Seeking to protect themselves, Portee made a decision that would change the course of gang history. He founded the United Blood Nation in 1993, uniting smaller street crews under one banner inside the prison walls. The UBN grew rapidly, spreading beyond Rikers into state prisons and eventually onto the streets of New York and the East Coast. Portee, known by the alias O.G. Mac, established a strict code of conduct, a structure with ranks, and a system of loyalty enforced by violence. He presented the gang as a force of unity and protection, but behind the rhetoric was a deadly criminal organization deeply involved in drug trafficking, robberies, and murder. By the late 1990s, O.G. Mac was back on the streets and leading the Blood's expansion firsthand. He was feared and respected, known for his ability to blend charisma with intimidation. But federal authorities were closing in. In 2002, Portee was convicted under the RICO Act for leading a violent criminal enterprise. The charges included ordering multiple murders and running a major drug ring. He was sentenced to 50 years in federal prison, but due to his dangerous influence and continued communication with gang members even behind bars, the Bureau of Prisons transferred him to the United States Penitentiary, Administrative Maximum Facility, ADX Florence. At ADX, Portee is held under Special Administrative Measures, SAMs, a designation used to cut off dangerous inmates from the outside world. He spends nearly all of his time in solitary confinement, with no contact with other inmates, restricted communications, and constant surveillance. For the founder of a gang built on unity and control, his world has become one of total isolation. Despite his confinement, O.G. Mac remains a mythic figure in the Blood's underworld. Some revere him as a visionary who empowered black inmates in a time of crisis. Others blame him for unleashing decades of violence that continues to plague communities and prisons. From the cell blocks of Rikers to the most secure prison in America, Omar O.G. Mac Portee's story is a chilling reminder of how one man's creation can outgrow its purpose and become a monster all its own. Pistol Pete. Rollick. The rise and isolation of a Bloods general. In the shadows of the Bronx during the violent 1990s crack epidemic, one name struck fear across the streets: Peter Pistol Pete Rollick. As the ruthless founder of the sex, money, murder set of the United Blood Nation, Pistol Pete turned his Bronx-based crew into one of the most feared and violent Bloods factions in the United States. Born in 1974, Rollick came of age during an era where the drug game ruled the inner city. By his early 20s, he was already commanding a vast network of street soldiers. His gang, Sex, Money, Murder, was more than just a local crew. It became a sophisticated criminal organization, trafficking cocaine and heroin across the East Coast and leaving a trail of bloodshed in its wake. Rollick earned his nickname Pistol Pete for a reason. Authorities linked him directly to at least 10 murders and indirectly to over 30 homicides, most of them executions carried out to protect his empire or silence potential informants. Witnesses were terrified. His reputation alone was enough to keep people quiet. But in 1998, federal authorities moved in. Facing racketeering and multiple murder charges under the RICO Act, Rollick surprised prosecutors by accepting a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to several murders in exchange for life imprisonment, but with a catch. Due to his status and influence, Rollick was designated an extreme security risk. Since 2000, Peter Rollick has been held under Special Administrative Measures, SAMs, at the ADX Florence Supermax Prison in Colorado, the most isolated federal prison in America. He is kept in solitary confinement 23 hours a day, with little to no contact with the outside world. He is not allowed visits, calls, or mail without special clearance, and even his legal communications are monitored. Prison officials feared that Rollick, even from behind bars, could continue ordering hits or running gang operations. Their fears were not unfounded. Investigations revealed that members of Sex, Money, Murder remained active across multiple states and in federal prisons, many still loyal to their founder. Today, Pistol Pete is considered one of the most isolated prisoners in U.S. history. Even among the notorious names at ADX Florence, he stands out. While inmates like terrorists and mobsters may receive occasional contact or correspondence, Rollick exists in near total silence. Yet, his legacy lives on. Sex, Money, Murder remains a powerful blood set with active members on the East Coast and in federal prisons. Some still refer to Rollick as the General, a symbol of feared leadership, brutal discipline, and criminal organization. From the bloody streets of the Bronx to a concrete tomb in Colorado, Peter Pistol Pete Rollick's rise and fall is a chilling reminder of how power, when built on violence, can echo far beyond the free world, even from inside a prison cell.